There's so many layers to being healthy, and that's what today's guest speaker is going to tell us about. So let's find out more about our health.
Building spirituality, family, health, and business. This is the Giant Builders with Lois Wyant.
Welcome, Giant Builders. I'm so glad that you're here. And as always, make sure you follow us. Links are below on all our social media. Would really love to have you there. So today's guest is Christian Elliot. Hi, how are you today?
I am well and delighted to be with you. So thanks for having me.
Thank you. Well, can you tell our listeners a little bit more about you and what you do?
Well, sure, I'd be happy to. So yeah, I'm a husband, a father of six. We homeschool our kids, so that's sometimes people are interested to know that. I've been a health coach for about 20 years now, and I've been through kind of the hobbyist realm. First, 2003 to 2005, I was getting my health back, and then we for 9 years, my wife and I ran brick and mortar locations, and we got our teeth in nutrition and fitness, and then really expanded into the broader world of wellness and a lot of different holistic practitioners. And then 2017, we moved to virtual coaching, which is, I can say, much better for family life. And so we have been really kind of through, I guess, the series of finding and solving the next challenge people had was working on the life coaching and the relationship coaching and just really we named our business True Whole Human. So that's our personal coaching business. And that really has just allowed us to focus on the whole person. And so other interesting facts about me is I have a master's of divinity degree. So I went to seminary for 4 years. So I kind of have a pastor's heart, and that's wrapped into seeing the whole person. So not people don't have to come from a Christian perspective, but that's part of who I am. And so they sometimes that's appreciated and wanted in the mix. But yeah, our sweet spot is really just helping people who've been wrung out by the medical and or alternative world and been through all the shiny objects and specialists and just haven't cracked the code on why they haven't been able to heal. And so realizing that we approach the whole person, it's easier to get someone well. And so we just basically build out holistic plans by getting to know the person. And it's really more of a collaborative effort than a dictatorship of do this, drink that, don't eat this, swallow these pills. And it's just about building a lifestyle, and that involves more than just what we eat and drink.
No, that's for sure. What
Yeah.
age range are your children?
My youngest is 1. He'll be 2 in July. And my oldest is 17 and about to graduate from high school.
Oh, so
Yeah.
you're teaching all the different levels there.
Yeah. Well, what we've fallen into is a great homeschool community. And so we
Mhm.
have a co-op once a week that meets. And man, the idea that homeschoolers don't have a social life is hilarious. My kids have more friends than they can spend time with. And it has just been such a enriching experience to take our kids through that journey. My wife and I decided to do it from the start. And she said, okay, I'll commit to first grade. It's probably hard to screw that up. If I don't do it, maybe I'll consider the next year. And it's just, we've never looked back. It's just been every time we see some news story about what's not so great about the public school system, we say, and reason 438, why we've chosen to homeschool. So
Yeah.
there's so many upsides, and it's just been, it's fit us well. And it's obviously has its challenges and stresses, but we wouldn't have it any other way.
Right. So as you come to like talk to people, what are some of the biggest blind spots as far as trying to get well?
Oh man, there's many, and often it is. I'll speak in a few different lanes. One is this I'll call the specialist blind spot. It's the idea that somewhere out there there's a special person who has a special answer to my special situation, and most of the time the specialist is almost further away from creating a solution because I've actually renamed. I made up a word for specialists. I call them partialists now because
Oh,
I
okay.
think it's more accurate to what they actually do. They're intentionally ignoring context and zooming in on a part of the problem or a part of the body or a specific set of hormones or a specific set of nutrients or whatever, and they lose the forest for the trees often, and they can have value. But when you bounce from specialist to specialist and lab test to lab test and diet plan to you switch from medications to boxes of supplements and it's kind of the same symptom whack-a-mole. And so a big blind spot is that sometimes health is less complicated than you think and you don't need a specialist. We got to return to the basics and be willing to ask some fundamental questions about why you're stuck. And you're not the only person in the world who doesn't need to drink water. You don't have a liver that's masquerading as a kidney. The human physiology and human nature are fixed. And if we can work within the biological laws of physics and not think there's one thing that you haven't found yet, there's this silver bullet that if I found this, it's some herb from the Amazon jungle, if I can just swallow it, or it's a special kind of water, or it's a particular number of calories, or all I needed to do was fast. And it's no, there's basic fundamentals. And when you get them down, it's remarkable how much someone can heal. So that's one answer in the biological realm. I could also switch to the mental emotional realm if you want to talk about that. But you want me to go there next?
Yeah, well, I want to say I really never thought about the fact that a specialist, the body working as a whole, you really need to know everything as a whole. But yes, please go into the other two ideas.
Yeah, well, okay. Yeah, you're right. And once it clicks that a specialist is a partialist, you can start it's not an insult. It's just that we're being accurate. We're trying to describe what they do. Same thing happens in the mental, emotional, spiritual realm. And the idea or I guess the quip that the only solution you have is a hammer, everything looks like a nail applies to medical specialists, it applies to alternative specialists, it applies to coaches, it applies to counselors and therapists and pastors and whatever. And in the mental emotional realm, speaking of blind spots, that's often one of the biggest blind spots that people have is failing to recognize that if you have a broken heart, that sometimes is why you have a broken body. And if you have a set of stories that you take with you about inadequacy or unworthiness or fear or anxiousness or et cetera, that will literally bleed into your physiology and create symptoms that are biological, but they're coming from a source that is fear-based or has an identity crisis or has a mean-spirited, accusatory or sting of who am I to try that, or I'm not worth the effort, or what's the point, and what does it say about me if I, or what are people going to think? Those are poisonous thoughts. They're poisonous beliefs. And when it takes on the level of, yeah, I can't rationally defend this, or I would not say that to a 5-year-old, but I can say it to myself. That we know we're in the realm of irrational, yet it still feels true. Right there is our invitation to explore something. And often that's a blind spot, or it's an avoided spot. Sometimes people don't want to look there, but once it clicks, that to Dale Carnegie's brilliant point in How to Win Friends and Influence People, everyone in the world goes through life thinking they're right all of the time. And if we just step back and do the math on that, it's impossible that everyone is always right, which implies once in a while I might not be right. But it takes some humility to get to the point where we go, I wonder if I'm making some assumptions I can't verify. I wonder if I'm telling myself a story that's not true. I wonder if, and it takes humility to be curious and say, oh, maybe I'm part of the problem. I think our shared demographic of people that tend to resonate with our message is they're at that point where they realize they're not invincible. They don't know everything. What they have tried has gotten to the point where they don't really, if I continue to operate this way, I don't see the fruit that's going to come from it. I have to think differently. And it's often around that time where people are willing to turn the mirror on themselves and say, maybe the way I've been showing up in the world, maybe the stories I've been telling myself, maybe the fears I have from my past or the rules I have lived by for a long time are part of the problem. And I can start to have the freedom to question my assumptions. When that blind spot disappears, oh my goodness, the windfall of improvement or hope or better health that someone can have is remarkable. So that's another big one that people have. But I'll let you comment on that before I switch gears to another one.
No, I really agree with all of that. But, I mean, we live in America and everybody's right. So,
All the time.
yeah.
Humility is
No,
not our
Facebook.
cultural strong suit. Yeah. Yeah. I won this argument on Facebook many times over. Why don't
Yeah.
people agree with me? Yeah. It's not where you win hearts and influence
Yeah.
people. But yeah, it's that the physiological recognizing that there's riches are in niches, but health isn't. I'm going to have to think broadly. There's no silver bullet. Recognizing that I might have some assumptions or stories or things I should question. And I don't have to question my worth. I can just question the thinking. I can entertain competing ideas and not have my identity at stake. Those are two big ones. Another one is more the contextual blind spot. It's the imagined I can do all of the things. It's the idea that I should be able to do this, and what so often happens kind of age 35 and beyond is that we hit our crisis of limitations. We hit the end of our ability to execute perfectly on all of the things because we can't physically be two places at once. And thinking that I can live up to some imagined standard of this checklist that's onerous or unreasonable, or if women have it even worse, because you're told to be sexy all the time and bear children and have a career and never want anything and just be like, it's so unreasonable and onerous to think anyone can do that, especially moms who have a nurturing heart to begin with, that it really forces us to step back and say, what do I really value? How much? There's only 168 hours in a week, in case you didn't know that. And you can't squeeze 180 hours of effort into that. It won't work. So, what do you want to put your hand to and why? And when it comes to the realization, I'm going to have to make trade offs and maybe delay gratification and sacrifice some things that are good things, but they're not now things. Those are the I just think more is more and I can do more. And there's this silly idea we get of this, what I come to call the all or nothing fallacy, that the idea that, okay, I'm going to commit to this, whatever, this business venture, this parenting thing, this spiritual experience, this workout regimen, diet, whatever. I'm going to be all in. I'm going to do the thing. I'm going to work out 5 days a week. I'm never going to eat this sugar, whatever. And then the first time you eat the cookie, the first time you miss your morning devotions or you oversleep, you're like, screw it. I know I couldn't do it. And I'm not going to do anything, which is the silliest frame. If you think about it, my two options then are perfection in this theoretical world where the air doesn't move and I'm never interrupted and nothing, there's no flat tires in life. And the other option is just, if I can't be perfect, I'll do nothing. Both are like, neither get you anywhere. You can't be perfect. Sorry if you didn't know that yet. And doing nothing is a path to nowhere and to dithering and to just festering until it feels worse. And to recognize that the only progress you've ever made in your entire life was imperfectly. You just kept going and you tacked back and forth. And so taking on the mindset of imperfect progress with clear objectives, with a vision of where you want to go, which sometimes is harder to pin down. I'll be honest about that for a lot of people. It surprises me how hard it is for them to go like, this is what I really want to go after in life. I don't know. And it's the piece to sit with quiet long enough to explore where the longings you have may be unmet and that's draining your motivation. And then to actually map out a plan that fits a real life. I guess if I'm thinking of to your point, the blind spots, it's those three areas. It's holistic thinking about your body. It's recognizing your mental, emotional, spiritual too, and that those story loops are going to be relevant to how you tell what the meaningful aspects of life are and where you find meaning. And then just the brass tacks of how much time do you have? And where do you want to put your effort? What are your time, money, energy, and emotional limitations? And when you can account for those, gosh, it's so much easier to get well. So that's just what I've spent the last 20 years figuring out how to articulate or how to help people map out a plan for in this grand adventure called life.
Okay, so putting all that together in my mind, so what would a first meeting look like with you?
I brace people for this. We may not crack the code in 1 hour. We're going to have a few conversations because it takes me time to even get my head around what are the real moving parts. What is your real limitation and what is your imagined one? What is your emotional aversion that I have not unearthed yet? So we can start any number of ways, but typically the consultation is I'm triaging. I'm asking questions in those three legs: the biology. Sometimes like this question, like what's going on with your dental health? It's like, oh, that might explain everything. Sometimes you can just ask a surgical question and then an idea of what was really bothering or bogging them down comes into light. And there's an obvious, okay, we could start here. Let's talk about the story loops. And I can usually tell by reading someone's tone and body language and eye contact or their hesitancy with topics, whether or not I've got some really emotional tender spots. And so sometimes I have to surgically ask questions in that lane. And then I just like, give me the brass tacks. What are the things that make claims on your time? How many responsibilities do you have? Do you have support? Where do you feel like I just have a hard time getting traction? And we kind of examine that and figure out, okay, with all these moving parts, where should we start? Where would you like to start? Where are you most motivated to start? And since we can't eat the whole elephant today, let's pick the area. So sometimes we start more in the life coaching frame. Sometimes we start just digging through trauma and emotional baggage that needs to be opened. Sometimes we start with just simple, like I had a client who was ridiculously high blood sugar, and all I did was take away Diet Mountain Dew, and his blood sugar plummeted, much to the befuddlement of his doctors. None of them knew that artificial sugar impacted the body as much or more than sugar. Like, I knew that. They just took it away. He got a big win just from that. So sometimes there's just easy things. Oh, you're not drinking water. You don't have an alarm clock. Oh, you don't poop. Sure, we can fix those. Like there's some significant things that we can check off. And once we get traction somewhere, it's you have this record of small wins that you can look back on a recent week or month and go, wow. And then motivation kicks up. And so my job is as much to find those leverage points to get them some quick wins so that they physically and emotionally feel better. And then it's just, then you're a kid in the candy store, like, where else can I improve? And you have more reserves to take on hard things. And in a journey of change, I promise you will have to face hard things. So once you are braced for that and you have this motto, I can do hard things, you become, there's a courage that shows up and there's a grit that shows up. And both of them are needed to become a better person.
That's so true. So is there a common thing that people need assistance with?
Yeah, there's a lot of common themes. And the more someone has had a rough childhood, the more the common theme is we've got to button up some stories and some identity issues before you're going to have the reserves to go through some of the ups and downs of motivation fluctuations, before you stop telling yourself crummy stories or setting fire to your relationships and being this abrasive person wherever you go. So sometimes it's personal growth in the kind of identity or relational element. And I need time with stories to sometimes tease those out. And so they come to light over the course of weeks or months. But common is when it comes to the health or the biological laws of physics, I like to call them, the habits we all have to practice. It's this is simple. Are you drinking water? How good is your water? Are you eating vegetable oils? Because if you are, you're poisoning yourself. Are you pooping? Right? What's your dental health like? There's just basic questions that can be very instructive of like, oh, I think I found the upstream reason why your body is having such a hard time. Sometimes it's sleep. We have to work on sleep. Sometimes it's energy levels, and sometimes it's mood. And then the other big one is, I had one time I had a lawyer tell me, I got an hour a week to work on my health. What should I do with the hour? I'm like, we should use the hour to figure out how to find more time, because there's nothing I can do to give you the ability to get well in 1 hour a week if that's all you put to your health. If the other 167 hours are fighting that, then I have a math problem. I need some level of time, and we need somewhere to get leverage over this, because that won't do it. So it's some people are really time poor. Some people are financially strapped. And so it's very strategic about where to spend it and then on what. And other people, it is I am just the meanest bully in my own head. And I've got to put that little twit in check, because I have to bring rational defense of this person and their worth to the table. And other times it's, don't drink Diet Mountain Dew. Cool it with the chips. Like basic things that make such a difference. And you get somebody pooping and it feels like the world is kinder. So any number of places, but those are some very common ones.
All right. Well, Giant Builders, if you like this information, check out these videos, because I think you will like them as well. And I'll have links to those below. So isn't it hard to eat healthy today, though? It's the corporations don't want us to eat healthy, and they don't produce great food. So isn't that kind of a difficult thing to do?
Yeah, let me answer that on two levels. So one, is it hard, physically hard? Like your jaws can't chew that food as well? No, that's not physically hard. But what a saying that's often helped clients kind of with the process of change is just recognizing that a healthy lifestyle is actually not very hard at all. What's difficult is switching from unhealthy to healthy and figuring out where the real information is that's life-changing, and figuring out what are gimmicks and fluff and what is just really good marketing. And then sometimes there's a legitimate like sticker shock of real food costs what? And if I'm going to eat around the edge of the grocery store, that's less convenient and costs more money than. And so it's typically not that we can't spend more money on food. It's that we don't spend more money on food, or it's not that we don't have any time. It's that we choose not to use it that way. So help me define your version of hard, dear client, and I can help you figure out how to get leverage over it. And then I can help you also figure out where you're just stubborn and you don't want to because it requires something of you, or for now, that's a bridge too far. And there's no like 0 to 100 in one day or week that people, oh, all of my cupboards have been emptied of the bad and my fridge is I cleaned out and now I know how to, I have all the chef skills I need and all the kitchen utensils and I'm familiar with it. And I know how to make sourdough bread and ferments today. Like that doesn't happen overnight. So let's start with where are you? Some people think they eat healthy and I'm like, oh, that does not even begin to be healthy. And other people, to their credit, they do eat pretty well. And now we're optimizing. So when somebody says it's hard, I just need to please define that term. What do you perceive to be hard? And I will find the way to make that easier and easier. And sometimes the hard thing isn't the logistics, it's you, and you don't want to because it's not convenient, or I miss my sugar or whatever. And we have to say, you can do hard things and remind them of why it's worth it. But hard can also be, I'm in a hard season of life, and food is the main source of comfort that I have. And I'm lonely or whatever. And that also needs to be accounted for because this isn't just a willpower battle. That is a very exhaustible resource. It doesn't last that long. However, if you're lonely, or like one of the clients I had, he said, whatever situation I was in, whatever emotional state I had, food was the answer. Celebration, food. Happy, food. Depressed, food. Lonely, food. It doesn't matter. And sometimes we have to realize that is our medication. We're self-medicating. We're changing our mood with this predictable thing called food. And it's hard to make healthy choices when that is what's driving your behavior. So sometimes we got to get underneath that to how do we address loneliness so this tendency toward crummy food and stopping by the donut shop every day home on your way from work is no longer a habit. Like, because I see something else I'm actually going for and reaching for. And so sometimes I have to solve the relationship lonely puzzle before I can get leverage over the diet. So anyway, that's a long answer to, but it's hard, Christian. What do I do? Like, yeah, I just have to figure out what you mean by that.
No, that's good. Yeah. So I know for us, we are really focusing harder on
Hmm.
eating healthy. And
Hmm.
part of that is I found a I found a Facebook guy to follow who makes some of these fun recipes, and instead of like sugar and this, it's honey and cottage cheese and sour cream or cream cheese or
Hmm.
something like that. So I think part of it too is for me anyway, is teaching my tongue to appreciate healthier foods.
Hmm. Yeah, that's a big part of it. And a fun experience a lot of our clients have fun that's on the other end of it is we take them through some sort of elimination diet where we cut out the things that create body burden, that create food allergies, or any number of challenges with just this is toxic, whatever that is. And when they are away, we just give them typically a guide like you can do and you can survive anything for a month. Like give me a month of essentially taking those things away because your body needs time to resensitize its own palate. Sometimes we pair that with a fast, which is even more resensitization. But when you get on the other side of being away from the allergenic or toxic foods, and you get to the place where your taste buds understand what a grade A product is and what a fake product is,
Mm.
and they can sense the difference that this is real, your cravings literally change. Your taste buds are like, ugh. One of my favorite stories is we had two chefs. They were husband and wife. They were both chefs at a restaurant, and they went through a program, and they went through a dietary change, and they went through a fast, and they were delighted to uh, cook for themselves more. So they had carrot soup, and neither of them could finish the carrot soup because it was sickeningly sweet. And it was carrots like that. Their taste buds had she was a self-admitted sugarholic. You can find her testimony on her website, but she had just had a raging sweet tooth, and now she couldn't handle carrots that were pureed because that was just too much sugar at one time. So sometimes it's just you don't get to the point where you'd have an experience where your body's like, oh, sugar, no, thank you, and that makes me feel horrible until you've gone through the hard thing to earn that. And so sometimes you just have to say, I am worth the effort to figure this out. I am not going to throw away the next umpteen decades or 3, 4, 5, 6 decades, whatever it is, because I can't make myself stop eating sugar. Not cool. I'm going to do something hard to earn my way back there. I'm going to wrestle with the emotions of what I do or don't want to do while I'm doing this. But I get one go at this, and I'm not going to throw it away because I've got a sweet tooth. Sometimes you just need that pep talk for yourself. And then it's facing the emotional ups and downs as you face those questions.
Oh, good point. Well, any closing thoughts?
Oh man, I plenty. Anything particular you'd like me to comment on?
Um, yeah, I was noticing in your notes you also spoke about detoxing. How
Mhm.
important is that in your program?
Detoxing, thank you for asking. It's become a critical component of it, of everything we could point to that is a reason why someone is having a hard time with their health. We've really realized that is the number one problem we are all dealing with. And so there's the microbial level of toxicity, there's the chemical level of toxicity, and then there's this thought. You could also put EMF and like blue light in there, but I think if you fix the other three, we could handle that a lot better. So um, detoxification of if I could simplify health for anyone, I would say there's three things. There's unburdening the body from the things that create, in this case, toxicity, that from the chemicals that we put in and on us all day, the ones that we are exposed to. If we can unburden ourselves from the influx, that can sometimes be negativity and toxic people, but unburden yourself. Step two is purification. That's the one that often gets so easily missed when it comes to healing. If you think of you've got two fish tanks, one is dirty and one is clean, and you've got a fish in each one. We can medicate the fish, we can biohack the fish, we can medicate it, supplement it, we can make it swim laps. But if we don't purify the water in the tank, the fish can't get healthy. And that if you think of your internal water, your interstitial fluid, this fluid inside your cells, if that does not get cleaned, it doesn't really matter how much nutrition you bring in because the tank is dirty. We have to purify the body of the microbes that literally procreate inside of us. And the worst, most offensive one is parasites. That is a very dismissed problem in Western society. So purifying the body of the microbes and chemicals. And then on the other end, it is nourishing. That is the third, that's unburden, purify, nourish. If you can think of health in those three steps, it is so much easier to get well. And so we expand nourishment beyond just food. It's water, it is hope, it is movement, it's sleep, it's play, it's time in nature. Those are hyper nourishing for the body. And the things that purify you don't tend to nourish you much. But if you're trying to nourish a dirty sink or a dirty fish bowl, it's really hard to heal. And so if you get that sequence down and you know how to purify and you know how to nourish, you can heal just about anything. So that I guess that'd be the note I'd end on is you're never without hope. You just need a method and a non-specialized, non-gimmicky way to get well. And once you have a methodical path like that, your arrow is definitely pointing up.
Oh, great. Well, Christian, that was great information. I really appreciate all of your knowledge and just helping us to understand more about our health.
Well, thank you very much for having me, Lois. It's been an honor to be here.
Well, thank you. All right, Giant Builders, see you next week.
Thank you for listening. This has been The Giant Builders with Lois Wyant.